Welcome to another episode of N Steel Boxing. I'm your host, Guy McKinnon. Today what we're going to go over is actually slightly different to what we usually go over. And it's in the sense that it's a bit of an opinion piece that we're going to be talking about the fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. So it's going to be unfair to me if I don't actually talk about some good aspects of it, but I'm going to give my opinions on what I really feel about influencer boxing in general. So some of the really good factors that there are is that it is a pretty high profile draw in the sense it's going to bring a lot of eyes to the sport. Now, both big names. Mike Tyson is obviously a legend of the sport and Jake Paul is the flavor of the month essentially. It will guarantee a large audience and like a high viewer interest for the most part. And a lot of people that I know and talk to are kind of interested in the sport now because this is going to be happening. Okay, not necessarily the eyes that you want, but they are interested just because it's a mainstream thing essentially. Now, another aspect is that boxing has always been a prize sport, prize fighting, essentially what it is. So it does make sense for these people to fight for money. And they're going to make a lot of money because they're both quite large names. So, it would make sense. And in conjunction with that, if any one of us had the opportunity to earn the amount of money they're about to earn, being on Netflix, being in front of a large audience, making their own profile bigger, I think we'd all take it. So let's not be confused about that. Like, I have no qualms with them earning their money by whatever means necessary. And if this is your platform, this is what you want to do, this is the image that you want to put out to society, then so be it. I'm totally fine with that. Do what you need to do. However, don't pin it as real boxing. Don't pin it as, oh, this is a legend that still got it in Mike Tyson versus a young up-and-comer, that's knocked out all these people in Jake Paul. That's not what it's about. It's a cash grab. And that leads me on to another point. That leads me on into that there are eyes on the sport, okay? And before I go into full hate mode, if you will, there are eyes on the sport. And the one good thing to come out of this is that it's going to get big eyes on the female boxing scene in the sense that Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano are going to get very large eyes on their fight. Listen, these guys are great. These two fighters are some of the best female fighters ever, you can make the argument. And I do respect what Jake Paul has done for Amanda Serrano in that sense that he's given her some of his purse before in previous fights. She's been a co-main event for him pretty much the whole time he's been fighting and brings attention to that side of the house. And she's fantastic. She's a very good fighter. So is Katie Taylor. So that's probably the best thing to come out of this fight, that is going to give them the larger audience for them to propel their careers in the right direction. Now, moving on from that, the negative aspects of it. Okay, we have a Mike Tyson that is 58 years old, last fought 4 years ago. You watch some of his highlight videos, like he's moving like he was 21 again. And he looks pretty good. But in reality, this is not the same Mike Tyson. This is the name that we're buying. Or it's a name that we're looking to go have a look at against this young upstart that's gone down the route of everyone should hate me. Everyone, I'm that influencer. I'm the bad boy. I do things unorthodox. That's what it is. That's what people are looking into. It's 8 2-minute rounds. Now, as we know, boxing is, especially in the championship levels, 12 rounds by 3 minutes, 1 minute break in between, for those who don't know. So in this sense, it's probably not going to show or truly show Tyson's abilities. Maybe it might even be beneficial to him at this stage in his career, at 58 years old, or his career now, which is retired many, many years ago. It's a spectacle. That's what it is. I also think it's a shameless cash grab by reeling Netflix. Now, I feel like Netflix has really dropped some of their subscribers now, and they're trying to enter that sports realm. Same with Amazon Prime. And what they're doing here is prioritizing a spectacle over what truly a boxing match is. So let's not pretend it's a real boxing match. let's look at the fact that it is entertainment. And of course, boxing is entertainment. But here on this channel, I'm very much a boxing purist. I feel like there's an integrity to the sport of a competitive nature. And because anyone can pick up a set of gloves and punch on, essentially, that can be lost very much in the in translation there sometimes. So yes, I think it's a shameless money grab to get some more subscribers by Netflix. Now, if you look at the way Amazon Prime did it, with their latest entry into the boxing world, with Tim Tszyu versus Bakram Murtazalayev, that was legitimate. That was a legitimate world title against, two legitimate fighters. And that was fantastic, Obviously not so much for Tim Tszyu, but for Bakram it was. And that showed a true spectacle and truly what it was to put on a real boxing match. So I, commend Amazon Prime for doing that. There's rumors that this is a potential fix. Now, I have nothing to substantiate that. However, it wouldn't surprise me. So in reality, if you look at who's the cash cow on this spot, you have Mike Tyson coming off his, using his name and that reputation that he had versus Jake Paul. He's almost 60 years old. If you're going to have some more influencer fights, it's not going to come from Mike Tyson. In reality, it's going to come from Jake Paul. So if you're going to look at that, the politics of it, if you will, Jake Paul is almost guaranteed to win. If it is a fixed contract in the sense that, you go down to this, or you're not going to try and knock me out, or if you hurt me, whatever it may be, or I'm going to take the points decision, it's going to go to Jake Paul. If it's not, you have a younger man at 28 years old fighting a 58-year-old man. In reality, you shouldn't win, no matter if you are an ex-world champion. Mike Tyson on his own needed that explosive young man's, his style already needed that explosive young man energy and cardio to get the wins. And as soon as he got older, issues started to arise. Now, this is going to be at heavyweight, and Jake Paul came up from, middle light heavy or something like that, and he's looking pretty fat, if I'm going to be honest. Well, he wasn't looking particularly good, but, I have no doubt maybe there's some, artificial enhancing here. I'm not sure, nor is that backed by anything. To me, it's more of like a WWE spectacle as opposed to a genuine boxing competition. All right. And maybe that brings some eyes onto the sport. Maybe that brings that younger demographic. However, my question is, are they the right eyes on the sport? You get some casual that rolls in, has a look. Okay, sweet. What happens if it's a crap fight? What happens if no one likes it? That turns them off the sport in general. And that's going to be a negative thing. It's a shameless cash grab, and has potential to be embarrassing. On top of that, Mike Tyson is very much a student of the sport. He's one of my personal favorite heavyweights, and like a lot of people, he would be the favorite of them as well. I feel like this could potentially tarnish his reputation if he does lose, because this is technically sanctioned as a professional bout. And potentially going to reduce into a sideshow attraction, and instead of preserving that legendary status that he has, and that disappoints me, to be honest. I would like him to preserve that a little bit more, or at least say this is an expo, if you will. It has a potential of distracting from real boxing as well. So these fights involving the influencers and all the athletes, it sometimes distracts from the real sport. Like you have guys like Gervonta Davis, you have guys like Bud Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, legitimate fighters, that have, where the influencers have more eyes on the sport, but it's actually not real, and it's actually a bit B grade. Now, that questionable attention as well, you got to bring the right eyes onto the sport. It can't be any Joe Blow, and might convert 1% of people, but if it's a bad fight, I think it potentially can has a negative aspect and negative effects on the sport. A lot of things that we do in Australia as well to get more eyes on a sport and on a particular fight is that what they'll do is they'll put a couple of footy players on, all right, like a cross code, like a AFL versus NRL, or two NRL guys with some beef to settle or something like that, and that will attract a certain audience. Now, for me, it may cheapen the card to a sense, but that is closer to the audience that you want watching the boxing matches than a 19-year-old TikTok kid, for the most part. Okay, it's a combat sport, essentially. Football, that is. It's rough, it's rum. You know, people that like that would generally like boxing as well. So I can see the connectivity there. And sometimes you get a decent football player that can actually box. Like Paul Gallen, he was a football player primarily, but he actually had quite a bit of success on the Australian scene there. And he did quite well. He beat Lucas Brown and a few other people like that. So, you know, he did quite well. He did bring a lot of attention to the sport in a positive manner. So I'm actually happy how that panned out. However, a few others have not quite been that way, and it actually reduces the legitimacy of the other cards and the other fights on the card potentially. Now, one thing as well, like Jake Paul, he's a millionaire, right? He's a very rich man, and he has access to the best trainers, the best nutrition, the best everything essentially. He has had relative success against professional fighters of some nature. Now, generally they've been, you know, UFC fighters that are not even known for their striking. They've just got a name and they've rolled in against him and he's just practicing exclusively striking. He has some level of talent for an influencer boxer. He does have some level of talent, and through that, I will give him some credit because it's hard to knock someone out in general, mostly, for the most part, especially when they have some kind of training in a combat sport. So I will give him credit for that, but he should be able to do that with the best training, and he has shown some level of dedication. So I will give that to him. All in all, I feel like boxing and influencer boxing have some relative crossover in the sense that you can bring some eyes onto the sport. However, I do not think they are the right eyes, and it can cheapen the more pure version of the sport where people are so legitimate. All in all, this is not a boxing match. This is a spectacle. This is pure WWE style entertainment, and it should be taken as that. I personally will not be getting a Netflix account to watch this. However, I may look up the what happened afterwards. And I think most of you will actually probably just tune in if you do watch it, just in the off chance that Jake Paul does get knocked out by an old Mike Tyson. But in reality, it's probably going to be points decision to Jake Paul, in reality. Anyway, I'm Guy McKinnon. You're listening to And Still Boxing. Until next time.
Thank you for listening.